A young man stood at the last step. He was wearing a tuxedo, old-fashioned but elegant. His hair was neatly combed, his thin mustache carefully groomed. He looked like one of those refined gentlemen from old British television shows. "Leave it to me," the young man said. "I'll escort them." With that, he hurried down the stairs. He stopped in front of me and without a moment's hesitation extended his soft hand. "Reginald," he said, gently shaking mine. "A pleasure, and thank you for coming. This way, please. My wife isn't feeling very well." I glanced back at Ruby. Her face said everything. I was sure that if I didn't insist, she'd already be back in the ambulance, calling for backup. But we had to go up there. We had to find out what was going on with the woman. Yes, these people were strange, like they were a few hundred years out of step with the rest of the world. But we weren't in danger. Not yet. Reginald moved through the empty hallways and rooms like a ghost. We still weren't moving as fast as we normally would have, but the size of the mansion itself felt unnaturally vast, as if it kept stretching farther the deeper we went. We were making our way down a long corridor when one of the old wooden doors beside us suddenly creaked open. Reginald reacted instantly, stepping in front of it as if to block our view. "Vivian, why are you out here?" he scolded, his tone sharp and dismissive. Ruby slipped closer to my side, trying to see past Reginald and catch a glimpse of what I was seeing. A blonde little girl stood in the doorway. Her hair was messy, only half contained beneath a white headscarf. From the dim light inside, it looked like the room was some kind of bedroom. I thought it was time already," the girl muttered quietly. "Not yet, sweetheart," Reginald said, gently stroking her cheek. As cute as the girl might have been, her cleft lip made her appearance deeply unsettling. In the darkness behind her, another small figure with an oversized head sat up in a bed, peering out curiously. "That's enough, children," Reginald raised his voice. "Back to bed, all of you." With a firm, unquestionable motion, he ushered the girl back into the room and shut the door behind her. "Kids," Reginald muttered, shaking his head theatrically. "Yeah," I said, grimacing. Reginald didn't respond. He only tested the doorknob once more to make sure it was locked, then continued on without offering any explanation. "Jacob, this isn't right," Ruby whispered again. "We should call dispatch. Get the police out here." "For what, Ruby?" I hissed back. "There's nothing concrete to call the cops for." "Yeah, they're weird, and this whole place gives me the creeps, but what am I supposed to say? That there are creepy kids in a bedroom?" Ruby shot me a hard look. I knew she was right. I could feel it, in the air, in the walls, that something here was very wrong. But what could I do? "You coming?" Reginald called out, already far ahead of us. "We're almost there. My wife really needs you." Ruby didn't take her eyes off me. Her stare was both commanding and desperate at the same time. "We're coming," I called back. Then more quietly, "Come on, Ruby, let's at least check on the woman. If anything gets even more suspicious than this, we call for backup." Ruby's lips trembled. I knew she wanted to say something, argue, protest, but there was no time. I just wanted to get this over with and leave this place behind. "And here we are," Reginald said as he turned left at the end of the corridor. We stopped in front of a door. It looked just like all the others we'd passed, except for the massive, dull-eyed man standing guard beside it. "Hello," I said when I noticed the hulking brute. "Ugh," he grunted in response. He wore huge, crooked suspenders over his clothes. The scarring on his chin suggested he'd only recently grown out of his teenage years, yet his size and filthy, smeared face made him look much older. The large man stared into nothingness with his mouth hanging open. Ruby pressed close to me, scanning everything with the tense alertness of a frightened cat. "Oh, right," Reginald said, placing his hand on the doorknob. "Before we go in, please put on gloves and masks. You do have them with you, correct?" "Of course we do," I replied suspiciously. "We would have put on gloves anyway." Yes, he nodded playfully. "You know, pathogens and all that. We've tried to keep the room sterile inside." I stopped listening to Reginald's rambling. Ruby set her bag down and pulled out a pair of medical gloves. We both kept an eye on the dull-witted man as she did. He was leaning against the doorframe, casually picking his nose, then eating what he'd just pulled out. So much for sterile. After I put on my medical mask as well, Reginald nodded in satisfaction, almost cheerfully, then pressed down on the doorknob without any warning. We waited, almost holding our breath, finally expecting to reach the person we'd actually been called for. But the miracle didn't come. Again. The door opened into an antechamber, gray wallpaper, a damp, musty smell. The chandelier cast a warm light over the room, and suddenly I had the same feeling I used to get back when I was younger, helping out at AA meetings. Chairs lined the walls, old plastic chairs. People were sitting in them. The men all wore dark, heavy fabric clothing. The women were dressed in long black skirts. It looked like some kind of Amish discussion circle, but their faces were wrong. Melted noses, clouded eyes, mouths without lips, missing noses or ears, an aberrant, twisted congregation holding a group meeting. Ruby was practically stepping on my heels. Even so, I could see the terror on her face. Her hand trembled near the radio clipped to her white uniform shirt. I had the distinct feeling that if even a single one of them moved, Ruby would be ready to call it in immediately. "Looks like a lot of people live here," I said to Reginald, who gently ushered us farther into the room. "Oh, they don't live here," Reginald explained. They're just part of the family. You know, they came because of the baby." "Of course," Ruby muttered nervously. The twisted gathering stared at us. They watched blankly as Reginald moved through them like a gentleman, and we followed behind him slowly, barely breathing. Reginald walked up to the next door and opened it once more. The room beyond was dim. Only a small lamp was on, outlining the shape of a bed hidden behind some kind of curtain, like a canopied bed. "Jacob," Ruby whispered behind me, her voice trembling with fear. "Yes, Ruby," I whispered back as quietly as I could. "I hear it too." A woman's painful moaning drifted out of the room. It was faint, a whimpering kind of pain, like someone trying to speak while burning with fever. "Right this way," Reginald said from the doorway. "Ah, it's so dark in here." With that, he flipped on the light. Now it wasn't just the silhouette of the bed behind the curtain. Something enormous lay on it, like a pile of pillows stacked into a single mound. Ruby and I stood frozen in the doorway. Every instinct in me screamed to turn around, grab Ruby, and run out of that haunted mansion as fast as I could. "My dear," Reginald said, stepping toward the curtain, "the doctors are here, or whatever they are. They've come to help." Then he pulled the curtain aside.